Hi guys and welcome back. In this video we're going to start checking for changes. What that means is when we know whether a file has been changed, we will be able to then tell the user that they're about to quit without saving their changes. So it's important that a text editor has this functionality just in case they close it by accident. How we're going to do it is we're going to keep track of the contents of each text field. And when the contents change, then we will mark that specific text field as modified. Okay, so how we're going to do that specifically is we're going to define a variable called text contents, and it's going to be a dictionary. And then what we're going to do is when we create a file, we're going to say text contents of the text area that we've just created is going to be equal to a hash of empty string. So this may look like a little bit of magic, but here's what's happening. We're going to have an empty dictionary called text contents. When we create a new file, we're going to start populating this dictionary, and we will say that an entry for this specific text area has a content of empty string. Now we're not going to put the actual content in the dictionary, we're going to put a hash of the content. Hashing is essentially turning a piece of data of arbitrary length into a piece of data of specific length. So no matter how long the contents of a file are, when we hash them, they will become a certain length. That's so that if we have very long files, we don't have them all inside a dictionary, we only have a hash of the contents. If the file contents change, the hash will change. So this is just as good for keeping track of whether something's changed or not. So whenever we create an empty file or a new file, that is going to have a hash of empty string. Now, instead of empty string, which is the content, we can just put content in here in case we're using this for opening a file. Next up, we do want to make sure that when we save a file, this text contents gets updated. So in save file down here, we will say text contents of the current widget is equal to a hash of the current content. Now, str of text widget actually gives you the name of the widget, and you can have a look at it when you, for example, create a file. I'll just print str of text area, and you'll see what it does. It prints out a TCL name of frame notebook text. This is just their specific notation. Every time you create a new one, it will have a different name down there, and you can see that it's text2 when I've created a new one. I know that you couldn't see me create a new one, but nonetheless I did. All right, next up, what we want to do is go ahead and implement something that will check for changes. So we're going to create a new function down here, and I'm going to call it check for changes. And all this function is going to do is it is going to get the currently selected text widget. So it will do current equal. And you can remember that we've got the currently selected text widget here when we did root.name to widget. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to extract that into a function. So we'll do get text widget, and it will just return this. So it'll do that and then return text widget. Then in here, we can use that instead. And here we can also use it. All right, so back to our original function. Check for changes gets the currently open text widget. Why does it get the currently open text widget? Well, because whenever you're typing, we're going to be checking for changes. And you can only be typing in the currently selected widget. So it makes sense to only check for changes in the current widget, as you cannot possibly have made changes to another widget. Then we'll get the content, which is current.get from 1.0 to end -1c. And then we will get the name of the current tab, which is notebook.tab current text. Next up, if the hash of the content is different from what we've got already in our dictionary, that means that it has changed. So we will say if the hash of content is different from text contents, str current, then we want to append a asterisk to the end of the file name, just to tell the user that this is currently unsaved. So we'll say if the name -1 is not equal to asterisk, we will say notebook tab current text equal name plus asterisk. All right, so what this is doing is if the file is currently unsaved, and if the name doesn't currently have an asterisk at the end, then we're going to put an asterisk at the end. And that is quite normal in text editors, and this signifies that the file is unsaved. Finally, if the name -1 is equal to asterisk, then we're going to remove it. That is because if this did not happen, that means that the file is not modified. So what we want to do if the file has not been modified, but the last character is the asterisk, we want to remove that last character because it is no longer necessary. The last character being an asterisk means the file is unsaved, but because this did not run, it means the file is not unsaved. So we'll say notebook.tab current text equal name except the last character. All right. So I know this is a little bit confusing. This is probably the most confusing code that we will write in this section, but it is to do with adding or removing the asterisk from the file name, depending on whether it is unsaved or not. The last thing we have to do is to make sure that we call this function. So we will go down here to our root binds, and we're going to do root.bind. And now it is key press with the K and the P uppercase, and the event is check for changes, like that. Let's run it, and I'll bring it down here, and you can see that as soon as I start typing, the asterisk appears, and if I remove the H, the asterisk disappears because it realizes that the contents right now are the same as the contents that it's got in the dictionary. Now, if I type an H, and then I save it, I'll do test2.txt, then notice that the asterisk disappears. But if I type an E now, the asterisk comes back. And if I remove the E, the asterisk disappears because the contents currently in the dictionary is when it was last saved, as we did here. When we did the save file, we replaced the text contents of our widget with the new contents that we've just saved. So this is how you can signal a user whether some of their files are saved or pending saving, so that they don't close this by accident without saving all their files. However, even if you have an unsaved file, you can still close this and it will go away without telling you that you have unsaved changes. So that's what we're going to do in the next video. I'll see you there.